Hey, what's going on guys? My name is Rampage and welcome to Rampage Reviews Wolfenstein The New Order for PC. Wolfenstein The New Order is a first-person action shooter developed by Machine Games and published by Bethesda Softworks for last-gen, next-gen consoles and PC. The New Order is a reboot to the Wolfenstein franchise. How does it stack up for a reboot? Let's find out.
Fergus, what's your status?
The story behind the New Order doesn't directly associate itself with the 2009 version of Wolfenstein, however it does portray the Nazis with the ownership of extremely advanced technology, like in the previous title. The game starts off with a meaningless 30-minute action sequence, including a plane ride, fighting robot dog mechs, and shooting up some Nazis. Basically, your objective is to kill everything and find a man called General Deathsheet, because he is a bad man and does weird human experiments, as well as being the Nazi leader, of course. The actual story starts when you enter the Nazi compound and are eventually caught by Deathsheet's henchmen, and are forced to choose a member of your squad to assassinate. Choose wisely though, because this section relays which campaign path you choose, as there are new gameplay elements for both choices.
I've seen you before. Oh, I like you.
Upon escaping the compound, you are struck by an explosion. Shrapnel strikes you from behind, which causes Blazkowicz to endure a concussion with slight brain damage. Therefore, he is placed in a mental asylum. Several years later, a group of Nazis come in and cause havoc. Then Blazkowicz randomly just gets up and helps fight. This game is filled with random plot holes like this.
Nazi scum. The war ain't over. Look at all these Nazis walking around. They won.
Soon after this event, you are told that the war was lost, and that the Nazis had won. Yet there was no time in between that actually answered this question. It was just basically the war was ended and somehow they won. There was no explanation as to how or why. Now I won't spoil any more of the story for you, but I will point out a few events within the plot that made no sense to me. Number 1, as you heard me say before, at the start of the game Blazkowicz gets hit with shrapnel in the face, which essentially renders him a vegetable, yet in the asylum mission he simply just gets back up and fights. This didn't make any sense and wasn't explained at all. Number 2, one of Deathsheet's women followers gets pwned by a robot, yet still lives with no brain damage. The only injury she endured was a destroyed jaw. There were several instances where the plot made no sense or pieces of the story that weren't explained very well. This seemed overlooked by the developers. The New Order's gameplay consisted of generic shooter mechanics, with the odd differences such as the ability to use a welding gun, which allows you to break chains and locks, open doors by cutting the wires, and swimming with a buggy. Not gonna lie, that was kind of fun, and there's a few other aspects as well. Machine Games also decided it would be a good idea to introduce dual wielding into this reboot, which was a cool idea until you realize you nearly get blind when you shoot 2 machine guns simultaneously. That's basically why I chose not to use that mechanic at all. Other than some new game mechanics, the gameplay was just annoying and disengaging for me. There was one section in the game where you had to get a drill and the platform it was on broke, and you had to do a huge unnecessary loop to get back to the base. This slowed down the pace of the game drastically. Playing the game on Uber difficulty, the enemies would aimbot you constantly, or simply never die. This made the game feel extremely boring after a while. The visuals within the New Order were appalling, due to the game using the id Tech 5 engine, which uses virtual texturing. Essentially, it tries to use an extremely large texture file to avoid something called tiling. Tiling equals repeated textures or a checked texture pattern on the ground. So with that in mind, was this a good idea? Well, if you're willing to download 45 gigs, yes, the game is unfortunately 45 gigs, for a game with poor textures, then sure. The texture resolution doesn't reflect the game's file size, nor does performance of the game due to its id Tech's virtual texturing system. So these issues alone are some major drawbacks for me, both file size of the game and texture resolution. On top of that, the lack of developer console options to fix their issues, like we could with Rage, this was annoying as half of the options we could use in Rage were locked on the programming side in Wolfenstein The New Order. However, the inclusion of a lot of cutscenes made me quite happy. So I guess there's one plus, but it's not really anything to do with graphics, but oh well. The sound was exceptional within the New Order, as you could hear enemy footsteps, bullet shells hitting the floor, and every bullet impact. And destruction. This aspect really helped make the game a little better, seeing as the sound for me does play a big part in games. Not just to sound whore, but to listen to the environments. I'm weird like that. Having massive plot holes, lack of engaging gameplay, annoying enemies, poor quality textures, and the 40GB download size, I mean, come on. If the game is 40GB, at least reflect with the visuals. These features alone just made the experience boring and stupid. I feel there was a lot of effort put into this game, but not enough testing or even a full playthrough by the developers to ensure that the story would hold up, which it looked like they didn't even bother playing the entire game. That is why the game gets a 4 out of 10 from me. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. Please don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more reviews and playthroughs in the future. My name is Rampage. See you guys next time.